He took his oldest daughter to dinner the night before he killed her siblings. He posted a photo. She was smiling. He was smiling. There were laughing emojis. There was a burger on the table. There was music, probably. A Saturday night out, a father, his little girl, and a booth somewhere warm and lit. That photo still exists. And somewhere inside the same phone that posted it, a plan was already finished. This is not a story about a monster who came from nowhere. This is a story about a man that people waved at from across the street. A man who showed up to work every day. A man who loved his children, and then, before the city of Shreveport, Louisiana had fully woken up on a Sunday morning, used that love as a weapon. 8 children were shot dead inside a house on West 79th Street. 3 boys. 5 girls. The youngest was 3 years old. The oldest was 11. And here is the thing that is going to stay with you long after this video ends: every single system that could have stopped this had the information it needed. Every single one. None of them connected the dots in time. So tonight, we are going to do what those systems failed to do. We are going to lay every piece on the table. We are going to walk through every warning sign, every missed call, and every moment where one different decision changes everything. Stay with me. Because this story is not just about what happened. It is about how it was allowed to happen. Before we go to that Sunday morning, before we walk through the timeline minute by minute, I need you to hold one question in the back of your mind. 3 years before April 19, 2026, Shamar Elkins looked at the woman he would later marry and told her exactly what he was going to do. He said it plainly. If you try to leave, if you take those children, I will kill you. I will kill them. And then I will kill myself. 3 years. He said it 3 years before it happened. And the question I want you to carry through every single part of this story is this: who heard that threat, and what did they do with it? Because the answer is going to tell you everything about how 8 children ended up dead on a Sunday morning in April. We will come back to that. But first, let us start at the beginning. Because this story does not start on April 19th. It starts decades earlier, in the part of Shreveport known as Cedar Grove, with a boy who was handed a broken foundation from the very first day of his life. Shamar Dwan Elkins was born on December 7, 1994. His biological mother, Mahalia, was a teenager when she gave birth to him. She was also in the grip of a crack cocaine addiction that she could not break. She could not care for him. She knew it. And so, a family friend named Betty Walker stepped in and raised him as her own. Think about that for a moment. His life began with abandonment, not out of cruelty, but out of a mother's recognition that she could not be what he needed. And a stranger became the person who showed up every single day. Betty Walker was his stability. His constant. The woman who would later speak directly to the New York Times about the man he became, because she knew him better than anyone. Mahalia and Shamar would eventually reconnect. But not until he was already an adult. Already a soldier. The relationship that defined him, the one that shaped who he was during the years that mattered most, was the one with Betty Walker. And Cedar Grove, the north side neighborhood of Shreveport where he grew up, was not a soft place to land. It was the kind of neighborhood that demanded you be hard or become invisible, and Shamar Elkins was not the kind of man who chose invisibility. At 18 years old, he made the decision that a lot of young men from difficult circumstances make when they are trying to build something out of nothing. He enlisted. The Louisiana Army National Guard. July 2012. 18 years old, and suddenly he had a structure, a purpose, and a uniform. He served for 7 years. His roles were not administrative. He was trained as a signal support system specialist and a fire support specialist. Both of those roles involve weapons systems. Coordinating firepower. Operating under enormous pressure in high-stakes environments. 7 years of learning how to remain calm while handling deadly force. 7 years of discipline. Of following orders. Of learning that violence is a tool that can be deployed with precision when the moment calls for it. He was never deployed overseas. He served on home soil. And in August of 2020, he left the Guard as a private, the lowest enlisted rank, and walked back into civilian life in Cedar Grove. No deployment. No combat. But 7 years of military training sitting in his body like a language he now had no proper use for. There was no documented transition support on public record. No bridge between the structure of military life and the chaos of everything waiting for him at home. He went to work at UPS. His co-worker, a man named Willie Vasher, would later describe him to the New York Times as someone who appeared to be a devoted family man. A guy who showed up. Who did his job. Who talked about his kids. But Vasher noticed something that he could not explain away. A bald spot on Shamar's head. Not from genetics. Not from age. From stress. Every single shift, Shamar Elkins pulled his own hair out. Strand by strand, throughout the workday, without stopping. His coworker watched it happen. His family had noticed it too. Everyone around him could see it. And nobody asked what it meant. That right there, that single image of a man silently destroying himself in plain sight while everyone around him looked away, that is not just a detail. That is the whole story in miniature. Because that is exactly what would happen, over and over again, for the next 6 years. People would see the signs. And no one would ask the question that needed asking. By 2026, Shamar Elkins had built 2 separate lives. And they were both collapsing at the same time. The first was with Christina Snow. His ex-wife. The mother of 3 of his children, Breelon, age 5. Kadarian, age 6. Soraya, age 11. Christina lived on Harrison Street. 1 block from the house on West 79th Street. 1 block. His past and his present separated by a single turn. His second life was with Shakwa Pugh. His current wife, or rather, the woman who was in the final hours of being his wife when everything ended. Together they had 4 children. Kayla, age 6. Layla, age 7. And others inside that home on West 79th Street. 2 households. 2 sets of children. Financial pressure spreading across both. A marriage to Christina that had already ended. A marriage to Shakwa that was now ending. And sitting underneath all of it, a criminal history that most people in his life knew absolutely nothing about. This is where it starts to get dark. Because in 2016, Shamar Elkins was convicted of driving while intoxicated. That is the kind of charge that people hear and file away as a mistake. A bad night. Something a lot of people have been through. But the second conviction, the one in 2019, that one is different. That one changes the entire picture of what happened on April 19. In 2019, Elkins was arrested near Caddo Magnet High School in Shreveport. He pulled a 9mm handgun from his waistband and fired 5 rounds at a vehicle approximately 300 feet from the school, while children were present outside on the grounds. 5 rounds. Near a school. While children were outside. He claimed the other driver had pointed a gun at him first. The court ultimately accepted a plea. He pleaded guilty to illegal use of a weapon. The school property charge, the more serious one, was dismissed. He received 18 months of probation. And here is the part that matters most, the part that turns this from a tragedy into a catastrophic, preventable failure of multiple overlapping systems. Under Louisiana law, that 2019 conviction legally barred Shamar Elkins from possessing any firearm until at least 2029. Not a suggestion. Not a guideline. A hard legal prohibition. On April 19, 2026, he had 2 weapons. A small caliber handgun. And a Mossberg rifle-style pistol, what police described as an assault pistol, that he was still carrying when officers confronted him hours later in Bossier City. A man legally prohibited from touching a firearm since 2019 had 2 weapons on April 19, 2026. And we are going to tell you exactly how he got them. Because someone handed them to him. And that someone is now facing federal charges. But that comes later. First, we need to go back to 2023. Because in 2023, something was said inside a private conversation that, had it ever reached the right ears, might have stopped everything. If this kind of deep, verified storytelling is what you're looking for, subscribe to this channel right now. Every case we cover is built on confirmed facts, named sources, and real accountability. Hit the subscribe button and join our community, the link is in the description box. In 2023, Shaqua Pugh considered leaving Shamar Elkins. She raised the possibility of ending the relationship and taking the children with her. And Shamar Elkins told her exactly what he would do if she tried. He said he would kill her. He said he would kill the children. He said he would kill himself. Betty Walker, the woman who raised him, who loved him, who knew him better than anyone, confirmed this to the New York Times directly. She heard it. She knew about it. And then Elkins told Walker he was just playing. He said it was a joke. He was just venting. He did not mean it. And Walker, who loved this man like a son, believed him. Or wanted to. Or needed to. Because sometimes the people who love someone the most are the least able to see them clearly. Shaqua stayed. In April 2024, the year after that threat was made, she married him. The court date to finalize their divorce was set for Monday, April 20, 2026. The morning after the shooting. Sit with that for a moment. She had reached the point where she was willing to make it legal. Willing to stand before a judge and say, "This is over." And the court date was 12 hours away. That threat from 2023 was never reported to police. It never entered a domestic violence database. It never appeared in any court filing. It never reached a single authority who might have flagged it. It sat inside that marriage, private, unrecorded, invisible to every system, for nearly 3 years. Now, I want you to understand something about that kind of threat. Because there is a tendency to hear a story like this and think, well, people say things they do not mean. People get angry. People talk. Researchers who study intimate partner homicide have spent decades on this exact question. And they are remarkably consistent in their findings. Explicit, premeditated death threats, threats that name the victim, name the method, and name the perpetrator's own death, are among the single strongest statistical predictors of lethal violence. They are not impulsive outbursts. They function as declarations of ownership. A partner establishing, with total clarity, that this relationship ends on his terms, or it does not end at all. The research does not say these threats always become reality. It says that when they do, the threat almost always came first. Shaqua eventually filed for divorce. According to Troy Brown, Elkins's brother-in-law who lived in that West 79th Street house, the reason was infidelity. Elkins had been unfaithful. And at some point, Shaqua had made the decision that she was done. And the moment that decision became legal and official and irreversible, that is when the 2023 threat stopped being words and became a plan. But that is not even the worst part. The worst part is that by the time the divorce papers were filed, there was already a separate alarm going off inside the VA healthcare system. And the VA sent him home anyway. January 2026. Shamar Elkins walked into the Veterans Affairs Hospital in Shreveport and checked himself in for a mental health evaluation. Betty Walker confirmed to the New York Times that this followed a suicide attempt. He had tried to end his own life. And when he survived, he recognized that something was deeply, dangerously wrong. And he did the thing that every mental health advocate will tell you is the hardest and most important step. He asked for help. Voluntarily. He stayed for approximately 10 days. And then they discharged him. Troy Brown, his brother-in-law who lived in that house with him, told reporters that when Elkins came home, he seemed better. He was talking about being a good father. About getting things right. About turning it around. Brown told AP that he looked Elkins in the eye and asked him directly, "Do you need to go back to the hospital?" Elkins told him he was fine. That he would just deal with it. Brown's response, in his own words to the Associated Press, was this: "I wish he went ahead and gotten the help." 3 words that carry the weight of the world. I wish he. Now let us talk about what the VA discharged him back into. Because this is critical. He came home to an active divorce proceeding. A marriage that was dissolving in real time, with a court date rapidly approaching. Financial pressure stretched across 2 households and 8 children. A brother-in-law watching him and wondering whether to call someone. And no documented follow-up support structure on public record. The same exact conditions that produced the crisis in the first place. Unchanged. Unaddressed. waiting for him at the door. And the questions that no one has yet answered publicly are these: was a lethality screening conducted before discharge? Was the pending divorce flagged as a risk factor? Was his 2019 firearms conviction cross-referenced with his discharge plan? Did anyone at the VA know that this man was legally prohibited from owning a weapon and that a divorce was forcing his hand? The VA has not publicly addressed a single one of those questions. What happened next, what happened in the weeks between that January discharge and April 19, is a slow, documented deterioration that everyone around him could see and no one had the tools to stop. Easter Sunday, April 5, 2026. 2 weeks before the shooting. Shamar Elkins called his mother Mahalia and his stepfather Marcus Jackson. He was crying. He told them that Shakwa had filed for divorce. He said he was drowning in dark thoughts. His stepfather tried to reassure him. Tried to tell him it would be okay. That he would get through this. And Elkins said something that should have stopped the conversation cold. He said, "Some people do not come back from their demons." The call ended. No crisis line was contacted. No welfare check was requested. No one called police. And I want to be absolutely clear here, because it would be easy and wrong to blame his family for that. The New York Times noted it directly. Most families respond exactly this way. Because most of the time, a phone call like that does not produce what happened here. Most of the time, the person makes it through. Most of the time, you get another chance to check in. The tragedy is that no one around Shamar Elkins could see the full picture. They each held a piece. His mother knew about the phone call. His brother-in-law knew about the hospitalization. Betty Walker knew about the 2023 death threat. The VA had the suicide attempt on file. But none of them could see all of it at once. None of those fragments ever assembled themselves into a complete warning. And he was 3 days from the court date. This is the kind of story that does not get told anywhere else the way we tell it here. If you are not subscribed yet, do it now. Join our community of people who demand real answers. The link is in the description box. 2 days after the shooting, April 21, 2026, the U.S. Department of Justice provided the first public answer to a question everyone had been asking. How did a man legally prohibited from touching a firearm since 2019 walk into 2 homes with 2 weapons on April 19, 2026? Federal agents charged Charles Ford, 56 years old, a Shreveport resident, and, crucially, a convicted felon himself. Ford was charged with being a felon in possession of a firearm and making a false statement to federal agents. Here is what the ATF investigation found. The Mossberg rifle-style pistol, the assault weapon Elkins was still carrying when police confronted him in Bossier City hours after the shooting, was traced back to its original legal purchaser. That purchaser identified Charles Ford as the person she had given the weapon to. When federal agents first interviewed Ford, he denied ever having the weapon. He said he did not know what they were talking about. Then he changed his story. He admitted that he kept the rifle under the seat of his truck. He admitted that he believed Elkins had taken it from him. 2 convicted felons. 1 illegal weapon passed, or taken, between them. A legal prohibition on the books since 2019. And a system that never caught it until after 8 children were dead. Ford now faces up to 15 years on the felon in possession charge and 5 additional years for lying to federal investigators. U.S. Attorney Zachary Keller confirmed that the investigation into the full firearms acquisition chain is ongoing. How Elkins obtained the handgun, the weapon used in the first part of the attack, has not yet been publicly addressed. And that matters. Because there were 2 weapons. And we only know where one of them came from. That question is still open. What happened next shocked everyone who thought they already understood how dark this story could get. Saturday afternoon, April 18, 2026. Less than 12 hours before the first call to dispatch. Freddie Montgomery, a neighbor from across the street, walked past the West 79th Street house and saw Shamar Elkins sitting on the front porch. The children were playing in the yard. The afternoon was warm. Everything looked exactly the way it was supposed to look. The 2 men waved at each other. Montgomery told CNN there was nothing in that moment, nothing at all, that suggested anything was wrong. That same evening, Elkins took his oldest daughter to dinner. Just the two of them. A father-daughter night. He posted about it on social media. There were laughing emojis. She was smiling in the photo. He was smiling. The night before he killed her siblings, he was photographed smiling over a burger with his child. That photograph still exists. At 9 o'clock that night, Troy Brown, Shaq's brother-in-law, the man who lived in that house, left for his night shift at work. He told AP that as he moved his car out of the driveway, Elkins was outside. Calm. Joking around. Helping him back out. Brown drove away. Inside that house was his nephew, Marcaden Pugh. 10 years old. Cousin to Elkins's biological children. Marcaden did not survive the night. Brown's wife survived by jumping from the roof with her 2-year-old daughter. Both made it out with injuries. His nephew was found dead inside the home. Now pay attention to what the behavioral research says about this exact pattern. Because it is not accidental. And it is not a coincidence. Researchers who have studied familicide, the killing of one's own family, have documented this behavioral signature across dozens of cases. Perpetrators in these crimes rarely act impulsively. The violence is planned, sometimes days or weeks in advance. In the hours before the attack, they frequently appear unusually calm. They engage normally with people around them. They say goodnight. They wave across the street. They take their daughter to dinner. The calm is not recovery. The calm is resolution. The trigger is almost never a sudden burst of rage. It is the perception of losing control, a court date, a finalization, a point of no return approaching on the calendar. April 20th was the court date. April 20th was when the marriage would have ended legally, officially, permanently. When Shaqua would have walked out of that courtroom with her freedom and her children, and he would have had no legal claim to stop it. Every element of that pattern was present on the night of April 18th. The plan was already finished. The children were asleep. And the hours between 9 p.m. and 5:55 a.m. remain the darkest gap in this story, not fully documented in any public source. What we know is what happened when those hours ended. What follows is the verified timeline of April 19, 2026, drawn from Shreveport Police Department dispatch logs, confirmed press conference statements, and the accounts of survivors. Read it slowly. Before 5:55 a.m. Shamar Elkins leaves the West 79th Street home at some point in the early morning hours. He drives 1 block to Harrison Street. He knocks on Christina Snow's door. Christina opens it. He shoots her 9 times. She does not die. He takes all 3 of her children, Breelon, Kadarian, and Soraya, and drives back to West 79th Street. Why Harrison Street first? Why Christina first? Whether it was the affair, the divorce, something said that night, something planned, investigators have not formally established the specific trigger. That question is still open. What is not open is what happened next. 5:55 a.m. Shreveport police receive the first call. A disturbance at the 300 block of West 79th Street. The caller is on the roof. The suspect is inside. Someone has been shot. The caller is Kosha Pugh, Shaq's sister. She lives in that house. She has gotten herself and her 12-year-old daughter onto the roof while the attack is still happening below them. She is calling 911 from the roof while her sister and her sister's children are inside. Think about what that took. Think about what she heard while she was making that call. 6 a.m. She and her daughter have escaped to the backyard. Both have jumped from the roof. Both sustain broken bones. Both survive. 6:01 a.m. officers arrive on scene. 6:07 a.m. Shreveport police receive a second call. This one from Harrison Street, where Christina Snow was shot. Christina Snow, who had been shot 9 times, used Siri to call 911 after Elkins left. She was conscious. She was coherent. She gave investigators a full account of what had happened at her door before sunrise. That is the kind of survival that defies explanation. Dispatch links both locations at 6:10 a.m. Officers now understand that 2 scenes are connected. 6:20 a.m. Officers receive information that Christina's 3 children might be inside a carjacked vehicle. After the attack at West 79th Street, Elkins had carjacked a vehicle and fled. Police pursued him. 6:40 a.m. Officers confirm the vehicle is empty. Christina's 3 children are not in the car. They are already inside the West 79th Street home. They are already gone. 7:30 a.m. Shamar Elkins is pronounced dead at the scene in Bossier City. Whether he died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound or from officer gunfire remains officially under investigation as of the most recent confirmed reporting. A post appeared on social media from an account identified as belonging to a former Army mentor of Elkins, claiming that Elkins had arrived at his home. They spoke briefly, and then Elkins shot himself. That post was later deleted. Louisiana State Police spokesperson confirmed the claim exists but noted the post was removed. The official investigation has not yet released findings. The Caddo Parish Coroner's Office begins its work at West 79th Street. The Caddo Parish Coroner's Office confirmed all 8 children were killed at the West 79th Street address, including Christina Snow's 3, who had been brought there after she was shot 1 block away. Before we go any further, we stop here. Because every number in this story belongs to a child who had a name. And names matter more than numbers. Jayla Elkins. 3 years old. Shayla Elkins. 5 years old. Breelon Snow. 5 years old. Kayla Pugh. 6 years old. Kadarian Snow. 6 years old. Layla Pugh. 7 years old. Markaden Pugh. 10 years old. Soraya Snow. 11 years old. 5 girls. 3 boys. The oldest was 11. The youngest was 3. All of them died inside a house on West 79th Street before the city of Shreveport finished waking up on a Sunday morning in April. 7 of the 8 shared a father. The 8th, Markaden, was their cousin. He was in that house because Troy Brown, his uncle, had gone to work his night shift. He was in that house because on any other night, that would have been the safest place for a 10-year-old to sleep. These children deserve to be remembered. If you believe in telling these stories with the weight they deserve, subscribe to this channel and join our community. The link is in the description box. It costs you nothing. It means everything to the work we do here. 2 women were supposed to die on April 19th. Christina Snow was shot 9 times. 9. She was left for dead at her own front door before the sun came up. And she used her voice assistant, Siri, to call 911. She gave investigators a complete account of what happened. As of the most recent confirmed reporting, she is expected to survive. Shaqua Pugh sustained multiple gunshot wounds to the face and stomach. She has undergone multiple surgeries. According to her aunt's account to the New York Times, as of the most recent confirmed reporting, she is also expected to survive. Kosha Pugh, Shaqua's sister, jumped from a rooftop while making 911 calls. Her 12-year-old daughter jumped with her. Both sustained broken bones. Both survived. Brown's wife survived by jumping from the roof. Her 2-year-old daughter was with her. Both made it out. These women, injured, some still in recovery, are the reason we know as much as we do about what happened inside that house. Their survival is not incidental to this story. Their survival is an act of something that does not have a simple name. They were not supposed to be here to tell it. Now step all the way back. Stop looking at the timeline. Stop looking at the morning of April 19th, pull back far enough to see the whole picture, every data point, every file, every system, every person who held a piece of this. Shreveport Police Chief Wayne Smith said at his Monday press conference that the violence stemmed from a domestic dispute and added, and these were his exact words, that the chances were good this was not the first time. Not the first time. Implying prior incidents that had gone unreported. Or undocumented. Or both. The systemic questions this case demands are not abstract. They are specific and they are urgent. Should a VA discharge for a veteran with an active firearms prohibition and a contested divorce trigger automatic cross-agency notification? Should a domestic violence lethality screening be mandatory when a divorce is filed against someone with a prior weapons conviction involving a firearm near a school? What would it actually take to connect those systems in real time, so that when every piece of information already exists somewhere, it does not require a tragedy for anyone to read them together? Those are policy questions. They have policy answers. And the fact that we are still asking them in 2026, after a case where every warning sign was visible in at least one system, is its own kind of indictment. But there is a question underneath all the policy questions. And it is the one that every person who knew Shamar Elkins is now living inside permanently. What were the signs? And why was not one of them enough? As of the most recent confirmed public reporting, 4 separate investigations remain open and active. The ATF's full firearms procurement inquiry, tracing both weapons, not just the one Ford, has been charged for. The federal prosecution of Charles Ford, the man who allegedly gave Elkins the rifle he was still carrying when he died. The Louisiana State Police officer-involved shooting investigation, which will determine officially whether Elkins died from his own hand or from police gunfire. And the Shreveport Police Department's active motive investigation, which is still working to formally establish the sequence of events and the specific triggers for that night. None of them have produced final public findings. The Louisiana Governor's Love, One Louisiana Foundation has covered all funeral costs for all 8 children. The Community Foundation of North Louisiana has launched dedicated survivor funds for the families. Both Christina Snow and Shaqua Pugh remain in recovery. Betty Walker, the woman who raised Shamar Elkins from childhood, who loved him, who believed him when he said it was a joke, is living with what she knows now. Troy Brown, who drove away at 9 o'clock to go to work, is living with his last image of his nephew alive. Freddie Montgomery, who waved from across the street on a Saturday afternoon, is living with that wave. And somewhere in Shreveport, 8 families are carrying the specific, irreplaceable weight of 8 children who will never be older than they were on the morning of April 19, 2026. Jayla was 3. Soraya was 11. And every year between those 2 ages is accounted for in that list of names. I want to end with something that has been sitting underneath every single fact in this story. There is a version of how this case gets told where Shamar Elkins is a monster. Where the story is simple. Where the darkness is contained to one man, one morning, one unspeakable act. That version is easier to hold. It lets everything else off the hook. But it is not the true version. The true version is that Shamar Elkins was a man who grew up without his mother. Who was raised by someone else's kindness. Who built a life that looked, from the outside, from across the street, from the booth at the restaurant, like it was working. The true version is that the systems designed to catch men like him, at his most dangerous, in his most volatile moment, had every piece of information they needed. In different files. In different offices. In different cities inside the same zip code. The true version is that a woman made a death threat report in her own mind in 2023 and then convinced herself it was a joke. Because the alternative, that it was real, was too heavy to carry. The true version is that a brother-in-law asked the question that mattered most and then accepted the answer he was given. The true version is that a coworker watched a man pull his own hair out every single day and filed it away as stress. This is what a failure of that magnitude looks like. Not one catastrophic mistake. Not one villain. Not one moment where everything went wrong. It looks like 5 separate truths, each one insufficient on its own, that no one ever had the structure, or the authority, to assemble into a complete picture. Until it was too late. 8 children went to sleep on the night of April 18 in a house on West 79th Street in Shreveport, Louisiana. 3 boys. 5 girls. 3 years old to 11. They did not know what was coming. And that, more than anything else in this story, is the part that does not resolve. That is the part that stays. The court date was Monday morning. April 20th. He made sure it never happened. This case is not closed. And neither is our coverage of it. When the Ford prosecution advances, when a judge hears that case and the evidence is laid bare, we will be here. When the Louisiana State Police release their findings on how Shamar Elkins died, we will be here. When the ATF completes its full firearms trace and tells us where the second weapon came from, we will be here. When the Shreveport Police Department formally establishes the motive and the complete sequence of events for that night, we will be here. Every development. Every document. Every answer to the questions that are still open. We will cover it. The same way we covered this. Verified sources. Confirmed facts. Open questions named as open. These 8 children deserved every year that was taken from them. The full accounting is still being written. And we will be here when it is. If this is the kind of storytelling you come here for, subscribe right now. Join our community of people who believe these stories deserve to be told with the weight they carry. Click the link in the description box. Hit the bell. We will see you in the next one. And if you are watching this later, after new developments have come, check the pinned comment on this video. We update our cases. We do not abandon them. There is a detail inside this case that we have not yet fully explored. And it is the kind of detail that, once you understand it, reframes the entire story. The gun. Not the rifle. Not Charles Ford. The handgun. The smaller weapon. The one used first. We know where the rifle came from. We do not yet know where the handgun came from. The ATF investigation is ongoing. The firearms chain is not fully public. And there are individuals in Shreveport who have been interviewed by federal agents whose names have not appeared in a single news report. When that information becomes available, when the full procurement chain is traced and confirmed, we are going to do a dedicated follow-up on this case. One that looks specifically at the gun pipeline. At who supplied it. At whether there are additional charges coming. At what the federal investigation has uncovered that has not yet been made public. Because in a case where the question, how did he get the weapons, still does not have a complete answer, the story is not finished. Subscribe. Turn on notifications. Join our community through the link in the description box. Because when that follow-up drops, you will not want to have missed the setup. This case is not over. And neither are we.